After an 11-year-long relationship, Henry promised me a wedding of the century, but 3 days before the wedding, I received an anonymous email with a photo of Henry and a girl holding a marriage certificate, the girl smiling brightly, Henry gazing at her with deep affection. The caption read, "I'm coming back." I confronted Henry with the photo, and he replied nonchalantly, "It's true, fortunately." He decided never to marry in this lifetime but wanted to experience getting a marriage certificate once. I just helped out. I remembered how foolish I looked on the day he proposed, ecstatically sending hundreds of messages to announce my wedding to everyone. If you're unhappy, cancel the wedding. After all, I don't have to marry you. The wedding will proceed as scheduled, but it'll just be his solo performance. Fine, then prepare well, Cindy. I'll pick her up from today's flight. And there's also his welcome dinner tonight, the wedding dress. You'll go alone, right? Henry smiled indifferently, his face clearly showing he expected this. Certain of it, no matter what, I won't give up on him. After all, in these 11 years of love, I've always been the one chasing him. Giving up my dream university, my ideal job, even missing my parents' final moments. He's probably long grown accustomed to my willingness to do anything for him, even if he's already married Cindy. I should still marry him without hesitation. By the way, you have to attend the welcome dinner tonight. Cindy specifically mentioned it to me. She hasn't seen you in a long time and wants to catch up. I'll send you the address later. Just head straight there after playing with the wedding dress. Henry adjusted his cuffs in front of the mirror, glanced at me, and said that he and Cindy had been the golden couple since childhood. During make-believe games, they were the prince and princess. While I was their servant, to me, he had always been the brightest yet untouchable light. If Cindy hadn't left the country early, there probably wouldn't have been a place for me. He did care for me, sending me an email before his return. But this time I didn't immediately agree as I always had. I have something else today and can't make it. Do you have plans? Henry's smile faded. What could you possibly have? Pack your things and leave. My next words were cut off by Henry. Summer. Can you just not? You're lying and can't even bother to come up with a decent excuse. You must show up tonight. I've already promised Cindy. He can face you without hesitation. Don't be so petty. Him being able to face me calmly. Isn't that because I've been the bigger person? But arguing is pointless. Henry wouldn't listen anyway. I stayed silent until he left, lost in thought about how to explain to Grandpa that I no longer wanted to marry Henry. The call connected quickly, and Grandpa's voice came through. Summer, Grandpa, are you still willing to give me that small company you mentioned before? Summer, aren't you getting married? I was just worrying about how to explain. But Grandpa said, sure. Grandpa always keeps his word. After hanging up, I cancelled the appointment with the bridal shop staff and started packing. The house belongs to Henry. A year ago, after he proposed, I moved in. That period was the happiest time of my life. Henry said during the proposal, Summer, I can move forward without hesitation because I know you're behind me. It's been 10 years, and I want to give you a stable home. Will you? Of course, I said yes. The next day, I moved in here and put my heart into decorating the home for Henry and me. Watching it go from empty to full of warmth brought me immense satisfaction. But looking back, there was almost nothing prepared just for me. Now, none of it matters anymore. I took out a large trash bag and stuffed in the decorations I bought for Henry, the unused couple items, the double happiness characters meant to decorate our new home in 3 days, and the wedding photos we took but buried at the bottom of the wardrobe. Halfway through packing, the doorbell suddenly rang. 2 people in black professional attire stood at the door, holding notebooks. Are you Ms. Cindy? I pursed my lips. No, I'm not, if you're looking for him. You can come back in a few days. After I leave, this place should become Henry and Cindy's home, or maybe they'll dislike it here and move somewhere else after I've lived here. Who knows, but that has nothing to do with me anymore. Is there someone else in the house? We previously contacted Ms. Cindy in the homeowners group about a fire inspection scheduled for today. The message was sent to Kai Shin in the group. I've lived here for a year and never heard of any homeowners group. Besides, why would Cindy be in the homeowners group? According to our property ownership records, the registered owners of Unit 1201 are Mr. Henry and Ms. Cindy. Are you their friend, or are you two from the property management? The way they looked at me seemed to grow subtly strange. At that moment, I was wearing loungewear, looking far too casual to be a guest. Not that I had the mind to care what they thought. I felt as if the top of my head had been pried open and my body filled with cement, leaving me unable to think or breathe. I thought I was living in Henry's home, even imagining it as our future love nest. But the truth was, I was living in a home that belonged to both Henry and Cindy. How laughable. The sheer absurdity of it all left me gasping for air. I'm sorry, this isn't his place. Please leave. I pushed the two of them out, quickly shut the door, and the next second, I could no longer hold myself up. I slid down against the door, crouched, and buried my face in my arms. I've been following Henry around cities both domestic and abroad since I was 18, running for 10 years until he proposed to me a year ago, when we finally settled down. But today I found out that, like a fool, I had been announcing to the world that I was going to marry Henry. That day, he registered his marriage with Cindy at the Civil Affairs Office, and the house I've been living in for a year bears both their names. They are the rightful, legally recognized couple, so what does that make me? The one who's been in a relationship with him for 11 years. Frantically, I turned the entire house upside down and finally found that dark red property deed in Henry's study. Just then, my phone blared insistently, ringing over and over. I don't know how many times it rang before I finally answered. Why did you take so long to pick up? Didn't I tell you to come to the welcome dinner? Where are you? Summer, I've landed and I've missed you so much. Hurry up and come. The property deed neatly listed two names, overlapping with the voice coming through the receiver, aggressively dominating my vision and hearing. It felt like a needle had been jabbed into my eyes, blurring everything before me. After hanging up, Henry sent over a dozen more messages urging me, numbly. I put everything back in order, changed my clothes, and left. If they're so eager to see me, then I'll go to the private room at the Four Seasons. When the door opened, it was lively inside. Kiss, kiss. A group of people cheered while clapping. No one noticed me. Henry let out a helpless chuckle, gently wrapping his arm around Cindy's shoulder, planting a deep and lingering kiss on her lips. Cindy shyly endured it passively the whole time, and the atmosphere in the private room instantly reached its peak. I thought seeing this would make me sad, jealous, or even drive me to rush forward and separate them. But in reality, I was enthusiastically filming it with my phone. I even studied which angle could best amplify their atmosphere. But suddenly, Cindy in the frame turned her face toward my direction in panic, pushing Henry away. You're here, Summer. Don't get the wrong idea. We were playing a game. I lost just now, so I had to. Henry, hurry up and explain it to Summer, he said, lightly tugging at Henry's sleeve. Henry's lips still bore a trace of red, his expression indifferent as he glanced at Cindy. I lost the game, so I was just helping out. Those words again. Helping out, helping to get married, helping to kiss, and next time, would it be helping to sleep together? Helping to have a child? I smiled faintly. I understand. Henry frowned, as if puzzled by my calm detachment. He seemed about to say something more. But Cindy stepped forward and pulled me along. Come on, we haven't seen each other in years. We have so much to catch up on, whether intentional or not. I was seated between him and Henry. With every question he asked me, he made a point of consulting Henry, who patiently answered each time. The looks from others in the private room were telling, likely seeing me as an obstacle wedged between the two of them, an existence that defied reason. Wushina, you suddenly came back this time. Could it be that you found out about Henry's wedding and came to steal the groom? Someone finally spoke up, unable to hold back any longer. Cindy's sweet voice carried a hint of reproach. Don't talk nonsense. There's absolutely nothing between me and Henry. Everyone knows you two are legally married. That WeChat moments post back then spread like wildfire in our circle. Even if John really likes you, we all know the truth. If you just nod, no one else would stand a chance, right? Henry, they spoke without restraint, even with a touch of deliberate provocation. These people grew up shipping the two of them as a couple and could never accept the fact that Henry was dating me. That's how it was before. The only time I attended a dinner with them as Henry's girlfriend, I was confronted with the question of how I could possibly compare to Kai Xian and dare to pursue Henry. That day, I made a scene, and afterward, Henry never took me to any event again, but this time, I felt nothing, laughing along with everyone as we looked at Kai-shin. He's just waiting for your nod. If you nod, you'll be the bride at the wedding 3 days later. Everyone looked at me as if I were crazy. Even Cindy couldn't hide the flicker of delight in her eyes, but Henry's face darkened as he snapped, "Summer, what nonsense are you talking?" "No nonsense," I replied calmly, speaking with utmost seriousness. Henry abruptly stood up from the couch, grabbed my wrist, and dragged me out of the private room. "Summer, are you out of your mind?" "Out of my mind. Maybe I was before, but now I'm fine." Before I could say anything, Grandpa called me. I shook off Henry's hand and answered, "Summer, have you bought the plane ticket?" "Which day is it?" "I bought it, Grandpa, the evening of the day after tomorrow." After chatting with Grandpa for a few more sentences, I hung up. Henry, his narrow phoenix eyes fixed on me. "What plane ticket? Are you going somewhere?" "Grandpa is coming for the wedding and asked if I'd bought the ticket," I said casually. Henry, without suspicion, he frowned. "Don't cause any more trouble today. I'll talk to my parents and have them attend our wedding too." Hearing his tone, as if granting some great favor, I felt none of the anticipation or joy I once would have, only amusement. For his parents to attend our wedding, I had to let go of his affair with Cindy without another word. The Song family comes from a scholarly background, with both parents working in education, including Henry, but my family is in business, and the Songs have always looked down on my origins. Over the years, I've sent countless gifts to the Song family and spent more time with his parents than with my own, but it was all in vain. They fundamentally refused to associate with someone like me. Now that I've chosen to step back, they no longer have to reluctantly accept the things I send. "Fine. I'll head back first. You all have fun. Let me walk you out." Henry, for some reason, suddenly became patient with me. In the past, if I wanted him to walk me out, I'd have to ask days in advance, and there was a high chance he'd forget. The car stopped at the entrance of the neighborhood, and he got out to open the door for me, shielding my head with his hand to prevent me from bumping it. I stayed silent the whole time, but when the car's headlights illuminated the road ahead, my heart still burned with warmth. Does he care about me, even just a little? But then my phone suddenly buzzed with a message, a screenshot of a social media post from a year ago. 2 profile pictures were side by side. On the day Henry proposed to me, they had both posted photos of their marriage certificate. Cindy's caption read, "Life is complete with you," while Henry said, "Whatever you want, if I have it, it's yours." The comments were filled with congratulations. But I had never seen Henry's post, and all these years, Henry has never posted a single thing about me on social media. We share the same social circle. Did everyone see their posts while I was announcing everywhere that Henry had proposed to me? I performed like a clown for everyone. My heart, which had just been warm and burning, felt as if it had been drenched in a basin of icy water, cold and aching. But then, ice-cold water was also poured over my head, and someone shouted, "He's the homewrecker, get him." The overwhelming pain drowned me. I didn't know how many people surrounded me, but trash with all sorts of foul smells was hurled at me. They kept chanting, "Beat the homewrecker," and "Serve justice." I couldn't fight back, nor could I even tell where the objects were coming from. All other sounds faded away. The world seemed filled with man-eating demons, baring their fangs to drag me into hell. "Stop it." After what felt like an eternity, I finally heard Henry's voice. The taut string in my mind suddenly snapped, and I lost all consciousness in an instant. When I opened my eyes again, I saw the sterile white ceiling of the hospital. The shame of that moment seemed to crash over me once more. I gasped for breath before turning my head to look at Henry. He no longer looked his usual clean and composed self. His lips parted slightly as he uttered, "I'm sorry." I didn't know whether he was apologizing for me, his rightful girlfriend, being mistaken for the other woman and beaten into the hospital, or for making me live in the house he shared with Cindy. But the tears in my eyes couldn't be stopped. They streamed down my temples into my hair, no matter how hard Henry tried to wipe them away. At first, he handled it calmly. But soon he grew flustered, his tone full of helplessness as he pleaded, "Can you please stop crying? I know you've been wronged, and I'll find a way to make it up to you." I raised my hand to cover my eyes and asked him in a nasal voice, "Make it up to me." "How?" "Let's make our wedding even grander. Will that do?" The once overwhelming tears seemed to suddenly dry up, not a single drop left to fall. I even felt like laughing. After a bitter chuckle, I shouted, "Henry, cancel the wedding. Don't say things in anger." His tone darkened. I imagine he must have thought I was being unreasonable at that moment. "I'm serious." Before I could finish, Henry's phone rang, interrupting me. It wasn't the usual ringtone I was familiar with. Whatever was said on the call, his expression twisted with conflict. He glanced at me and said, "Keep an eye on him. I have something to deal with here. I can't come over now." After hanging up, Henry pressed his lips together. "Stop overthinking. Get some rest. I'll stay here with you." Henry kept his word. Despite 3 more calls, he didn't leave my hospital room. He attended to every need, pouring tea and water with care, but my mind was in turmoil, too distracted to appreciate his rare tenderness. Just as I was drifting into sleep, my phone buzzed repeatedly by my pillow, a message from an unknown number. "You think he's taking care of you because he's worried and still cares. Take a good look." Attached were screenshots from a group chat. Someone in the neighborhood group had posted my photo, edited with the words "Homewrecker. May your whole family die." One bold person even tagged Cindy, saying, "Tell your husband he's cheating. This is the other woman." Cindy didn't explain, only replying with a heartbroken emoji. The group erupted into a storm of insults directed at me. I never knew words could hurt so deeply. In the end, perhaps Henry still had a shred of conscience. Unable to bear it any longer, he finally spoke up. "She's not the other woman." But his statement not only failed to turn the situation around, it made the group's insults toward me even fiercer, and they even planned to teach me a lesson. Someone even bluntly asked Henry, "If I'm not the other woman, then what is Cindy?" It eventually escalated to questioning him. Who exactly is his wife, Cindy or me? The last line in the screenshot was Henry's reply, "Of course. The one on the property deed is my wife." I felt a chill run through my entire body, trembling uncontrollably. No wonder he acted out of character and insisted on taking me home. No wonder he still chose to stay with me after answering Cindy's call. It turns out this entire disaster of mine stemmed from him. 11 years of chasing and companionship only earned me his public declaration that I was the other woman. I thought I no longer cared, that my heart was numb to whatever he did. But at this moment, a fire seemed to ignite in my chest, burning with a madness to consume everything. At this moment, Henry entered from outside the ward. I stared at him unblinkingly. "Henry, Summer, Cindy, she's suffering from alcohol poisoning and is getting her stomach pumped. I'll go check on her. Be good and rest." "Henry, stop right there." Maybe he didn't notice my mood was off, or maybe he noticed but simply didn't care. His brows furrowed, his tone icy cold. "What else do you want? I've already stayed with you for so long. Aren't you satisfied yet? Cindy is in critical condition. I don't have time to indulge your tantrums." With that, without waiting for my response, he strode out of the ward, the door shut tightly behind him, just like how I've always chased after Henry, only to be shut out of his heart, not a sliver of light in sight. The raging fire in my chest was instantly extinguished. I smiled silently, slowly lying back on the hospital bed and pulling the covers over myself. Soon, it'll all be over. After Henry left, I didn't see him again until the next day, but I held no expectations for him. Being alone was just fine. Not long after, though, I received another message from Cindy. "Want to bet whether your wedding will go ahead as planned?" I chuckled and replied casually, "No need to bet, the wedding will be quite lively." "Fine, then I'll wait to see your spectacle." I turned off my phone and ignored it. After getting a doctor's note, I checked out of the hospital and went to the police station to file a report. Even if Henry personally stepped in to condemn me, those people had no right to punish me. I didn't return to that house, instead booking a hotel room. By the time I boarded the flight back, I still hadn't received a single call from Henry. It was already evening when I got off the plane. The phone rang as soon as I turned it on. It was Henry. "Summer, you should be discharged and back home by now, right?" I wasn't surprised. Henry knew I was discharged and back home, and it was clear this wasn't out of concern for me. After all, given how much I used to care about our wedding, as long as I could move, I'd definitely show up at the venue on time. Henry had no doubt about that. I brushed him off with a few words and hung up. Turning around, I saw my grey-haired grandpa, looking even older than the last time I saw him. My throat tightened, and my voice choked up. "Grandpa." "Hey, don't cry," Grandpa said. "I'm so happy to come pick you up." His voice was cheerful, but his eyes were also slightly moist. Back when my parents died in a car accident, Henry and I were stuck abroad. By the time we returned, they had already been buried. Even I couldn't forgive myself, but Grandpa never blamed me. Instead, he comforted me for a long time and supported me in pursuing my own happiness. Looking back now, I realize how selfish I was. October 21st, the wedding date, was carefully chosen after consulting several fortune-tellers. When I asked Henry for his opinion, he simply said, "Whatever." At that time, hearing those two words filled me with hope. Little did I know. I probably never imagined in my wildest dreams that this relationship would end like this. The wedding was supposed to be the grand finale. The night before, I stayed up all night watching 3 movies. As dawn broke, I set my phone to silent, found the most comfortable position in bed, and fell into a deep sleep. Today's wedding was destined to be Henry's solo performance. I wonder how he'll react when he realizes I'm gone. When I woke up, I realized my phone, which I had set to silent the night before, had been called so much that it automatically shut down. Henry's calls were the most frequent, so many that I couldn't even count them. The rest were from his parents, his friends, and some unknown numbers, all of which I ignored. After enjoying a peaceful lunch with Grandpa, I finally checked the online uproar. Someone at the wedding had filmed and uploaded a video, which included the clips I had prepared and some chat screenshots. Cindy, the top idol who had just returned from abroad, was labeled as the wedding wrecker and faced a barrage of online abuse. When I called Henry, he answered instantly, a treatment I hadn't received in 11 years, but his end was chaotic, and I couldn't tell what was happening. "Summer, I'm not deaf, I can hear you. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Do you know how much of a fool you made me look like today? You were the one who wanted this marriage. I even invited my parents, and now you've turned me into a laughingstock in front of everyone. You know very well they never approved of us getting married in the first place. With things turning out like this, have you even thought about how to fix this mess? I don't care where you went, but you better get back here within half an hour, explain yourself properly, issue a public statement to clarify things, and apologize to Cindy to salvage your reputation." I left my phone on the garden chair, letting Henry find it. In the past, I hung on to his every word, and when he spoke little, I'd fill in the gaps with my own imagination. But now that I no longer want to listen, he suddenly has so much to say. It wasn't until he called my name repeatedly on the other end that I picked up the phone again. This time, I didn't let him speak first. "Henry, the marriage was my idea. But that was before I knew you had already registered your marriage with Cindy. I just wanted to give our 11-year relationship a proper ending. But now I know, there is no proper ending. I might as well have spent those 11 years feeding a dog, so I'm doing you a favor by stepping aside and letting you two be together. Since all the guests are already invited, you can just go ahead and marry Cindy on the spot. What more could you possibly complain about? Oh, and don't call me again. Let's just pretend we never knew each other." With that, I hung up and immediately blocked everyone connected to Henry. From now on, he and I are done. Henry stared at the disconnected call and tried calling again, but the line wouldn't connect. Unwilling to give up, he dialed several more times with the same result. Suddenly feeling a pang of panic, in his memory, calls to Summer had never taken more than 10 seconds to connect, let alone end up completely unreachable like now. Only at this moment did Henry belatedly realize how sweet and pleasant Summer's voice had sounded through the receiver. He couldn't bring himself to deal with the chaotic wedding scene, nor did he notice that many guests had already recorded videos and posted them online. Snatching a phone from one of his friends, he tried calling Summer again, but none of the calls went through. The tension in his heart eased slightly. If all the calls failed, maybe something had genuinely delayed Summer on his end. "Henry, sob. Summer went too far. All that stuff was edited. You know I'd never have those kinds of feelings for you. How could I possibly send him emails with such provocative words? If I had feelings for you, what would he even matter? Causing such a scene today was so immature, turning your parents and you into a laughingstock. You have to make him come back and apologize to your parents in person, otherwise there's no way to forgive him. Cindy's tearful voice rang in his ears, but for the first time, he didn't immediately rush to comfort her. After 11 years together, Summer, what kind of person is she? He knows her well. She is meticulous, has a strong ability to learn, and pursues perfection in everything. She is also sincere with people and never lies. He still remembers when he agreed to be her boyfriend. Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled and said, "Henry, even though I was the one who pursued you, I still have one requirement for you. That is, you must never lie to me, not even white lies or malicious ones. I despise lies the most, and I will hold myself to the same standard." At the time, he thought it was just about not lying, but once he told one lie, it took countless more to cover it up, and in the end, it couldn't be undone. This time, it was his mistake. "Henry, can you hear me? Summer, when will you come to apologize?" Henry didn't answer Cindy's words. When? 2 days should be enough. By then, he would help plead with his parents not to blame him. But after 2 days, Summer was still unreachable. Then Henry thought he didn't need an apology anymore. He just wanted her to come back quickly. Another 3 days passed, and the person he had been longing for still hadn't appeared. He even began hallucinating, rushing out of his room every morning upon waking, convinced that Summer was in the kitchen making breakfast for him, only to find the once cozy room suddenly empty. Henry searched everywhere, not knowing what was missing, yet feeling as though everything was gone. I saw Henry again a week later, in a way I never expected. My best friend video called me from a bar, inviting me for drinks. Just as I was refusing, the screen suddenly switched to Henry's face. "Summer, come find me. I'll be waiting here for you." This was a fresh approach. In the past, it was always me waiting for him, but now he had his turn to wait for me. "Sorry, we're not close. Who are you?" "Summer, stop messing around." "Okay, it's been a week. I couldn't reach you on WeChat or calls." "What do you even want? I flew here first thing in the morning but haven't even seen you. Now I only have 3 hours left. There's a project waiting for me to finish." His slightly weary voice was cut off as I ended the call. That line used to work like a charm on me because I'd always compromise, afraid of disrupting his work. But what does any of that have to do with me now? I'm no longer the Summer who revolved entirely around Henry. Later, I heard from my best friend that Henry sat alone in a bar for 3 hours, coldly rejecting over a dozen women who approached him, before finally storming out. I shrugged indifferently. Researcher Song's time is precious. What a grand favor it was for him to waste a day on me and wait 3 hours. It's just that I didn't want this favor. After that, I threw myself entirely into taking over the small company Grandpa gave me to practice with. Looking back now, I'm grateful that even though I followed Henry around for so many years without building my own career, I never neglected my studies. In those unfamiliar places, waiting for the days when Henry might spare me a few more words, I had no familiar social circle, no stable job. Self-study was the only thing I could do. Now, all that effort has saved me a lot of trouble at work and kept me too busy to dwell on how foolish I was for over a decade. After making the first decision to sign a client for the company, I treated the employees to a celebratory dinner. Just as we sat down, I received a video call, a friend of Henry, one I hadn't deleted by oversight. As if possessed, I answered it. On the screen was Henry, lying on a dimly lit sofa in a private room. His striking features seemed even more defined than before, exuding an air of nobility despite the dim lighting. But to me now, the face that once haunted my dreams was nothing special. "Summer, Henry is drunk. Come pick him up." The tone was entitled and commanding, as if I were Henry's servant, always ready to cater to his needs. "If Henry is drunk, you should call Cindy. Or is it because he keeps calling your name? Are you satisfied now? Henry still has feelings for you." The camera zoomed in on Henry's face, flushed red, his lips murmuring something. Henry has a peculiar constitution. Whenever he drinks too much, his entire body turns red, and he suffers through sleepless nights. In the past, I would stay up all night caring for him. though I was never obligated to. But now, with no feelings left for him, even if he died, it wouldn't concern me. Do you think you deserve this, Summer? I'm giving you a way out now. If you don't take it, don't come crying to us friends later, and don't you dare say another word. Shut up. Summer's phone on the other end seemed to have been knocked to the ground, and the receiver carried Henry's drunken voice along with a cacophony of chaos. It was the first time Henry had ever stood up for me. In the past, he not only stood by indifferently but also believed that everyone disliking me was my own fault. Back then, I fought alone against overwhelming odds. Now, though I had reinforcements, the original Summer had long died in that chaotic war. I hung up the phone, ate my meal, and then followed them to another venue to continue the fun. Surrounded by the vibrant energy of lively people, I finally felt truly alive again. Little did I know, someone had taken a photo of me and sent it to Henry. After that day on the 14th, I didn't hear from Henry for a long time. Cindy also kept a low profile following the online uproar. Unlike when she first returned to the country and made daily headlines, most of my time was now devoted to work, and the rest was spent accompanying Grandpa on walks and chats. In just one short month, I gained more than I had in over a decade, experiencing a sense of peace and fulfillment I'd never known before. Yet, whenever I passed by a bridal shop's display window, I couldn't help but think of the wedding dress I had designed over 3 years, revised more than a dozen times, only to never even see the finished product. But all these past experiences, good and bad, were integral parts of my life, and I had learned to accept them with equanimity. When my assistant called, I was reviewing a tender proposal I'd spent 3 sleepless nights preparing. Grandpa had set me a task. Winning this bid would secure my place in the headquarters. Meanwhile, Summer Lab had just notified us that our participation eligibility had been revoked. The assistant's voice was choked with tears. Everyone knew how much I valued this bidding company, and everyone had been working hard for it. Now, with the progress bar at 99%, it suddenly collapsed. Truly hard to accept. Did they say why? They claimed our qualifications were insufficient. If our qualifications weren't enough, we wouldn't have passed initially. This last-minute notice is clearly deliberate obstruction. But after a week of running around with my assistant, with the bidding meeting starting tomorrow, we still haven't even met the person in charge. The little assistant, with dark circles under her eyes, asked me, Summer, what do we do now? We've exhausted all options. The only thing left is Summer. The lab director's phone. When I sat in the client's meeting room with my assistant, I was still confused. We had already been disqualified, so why did they suddenly call to arrange a meeting? Wow, he's so handsome. This researcher wasn't in their materials before. My assistant Eric's awed tone snapped me out of my thoughts. Following his gaze, I saw someone who shouldn't have been here. Henry, dressed in lab workwear. He wore it like a runway model. Hello, could I speak with your Summer alone? Eric left the meeting room with a scoff. Summer. I stayed silent, staring at the Henry across from me. At the Maritime Research Institute, he was a top researcher, with all resources funneled to him alone. His future was bright. I couldn't understand why he'd suddenly show up here. I've already talked to them. This bid is yours by default. What do you mean? Summer, I came here from the Maritime Research Institute just to help you. I've been thinking a lot lately, for so many years. It was you who followed me. Now it's my turn to chase after you. I hope you can see my sincerity and accept me again. He spoke with such earnestness, his eyes full of seriousness, but I couldn't help but laugh. Accept you? To be your and Cindy's little mistress. If you're bothered by this, I'll handle it. I don't mind. Just stay away from me. Henry, seeing you only makes me sick. I stood up from the couch and had barely taken a step when Henry grabbed my wrist. Summer, can you just listen to me for a moment? You weren't like this before. What was I like before? Henry, do you even remember? In your eyes, I was probably just a free maid, a shameless burden trailing after you. Why would you think that? If I really felt that way, would I have proposed to you? Would I have wanted to marry you? You let me go around like a fool, telling everyone you proposed to me, only to reject me after I spent 2 hours editing a post for your social media, just to turn around and post your marriage certificate and vows with Cindy. What was that? It was you who had me live in the house with your and Cindy's names written on it. Then personally stepped in to call me the other woman between you two, getting me beaten and insulted. I'm sorry. 11 years. Henry, my heart and eyes were full of you, even if I had raised a dog all these years. It would at least wag its tail at me, not bite me. But you're worse than a dog. I didn't look at his pale face. I opened the door and left the meeting room. Eric and the lab director were waiting outside, probably having heard my conversation with Henry. Their expressions were, "Let's go." Eric responded quickly. It wasn't until we got in the car that she carefully handed me a tissue. "Summer, wipe your tears." Only then did I realize my face was covered in tears. And even my brown suit was damp in one spot. I leaned on the seat for a long time before finally letting out a deep sigh. We're giving up on this project. Okay, Summer. But as I drove out of the lab's underground garage, I saw Henry around the corner. If Eric hadn't called out, I might have hit him. Manager Dow. What should we do now? Henry blocked my only path forward, showing no intention of moving aside. Several cars had already piled up behind me, their horns blaring incessantly. Henry, what exactly do you want? This was so unlike him. In the past, he valued his dignity above all else. Stopping traffic in the middle of the street was something only a scoundrel would do, in his eyes, yet now, he seemed utterly unfazed, not even batting an eyelid. Summer, I was wrong before. Give me a chance. Let's start over, okay? She stood stubbornly in front of the car. I rolled up the window, released the handbrake, and pressed the accelerator. Eric, sitting in the passenger seat, screamed in panic. But I felt nothing inside. The car lurched forward, yet the Henry ahead still didn't flinch or move aside. His dark, bottomless eyes stared straight at me. He probably thought I wouldn't hit him. And the old me would never have let him come to harm. Every time he got hurt, it was me who felt the pain most, but not anymore. The car surged ahead steadily as Eric shrieked for me to stop, but I ignored him. Just before impact, Henry was suddenly tackled aside by Cindy, who lunged at him from the side. The car sped past, and in the rearview mirror, I could still see Henry and Cindy tangled on the roadside. His gaze, usually composed and inscrutable, finally showed cracks as he stubbornly watched me drive away. I turned the wheel, and their figures vanished from the mirror. Woo-woo, Summer, you scared me to death. If someone hadn't tackled him, you would have hit him. It was so terrifying. Woo-woo, it wouldn't have happened. I smiled and didn't explain further. When I came out of the basement, I saw Cindy hiding on the side. He wouldn't just stand by and watch Henry get hit by me. Such a perfect opportunity to show himself. I believe he wouldn't miss it. After this incident, I thought Henry would probably give up. The pampered Henry had never been so publicly humiliated before. He likely never wanted to see me again. But I didn't expect the lab to email our company, saying we had won the bid. The bid document must have been left in the lab's reception room last time and was submitted by Henry. Or, as he said, it was already prearranged. Eric, reply to them and say our company is undergoing internal restructuring and can't complete this project. Apologize to them. Got it, Summer. Although this was a task assigned to me by Grandpa, I no longer wanted the slightest connection with Henry. I'd have to go back and beg Grandpa to give me another project, but I never expected to see two unexpected people at home. Summer, Uncle Song and Auntie Song. Actually, our family used to be quite close with the Songs when I was little. It was only after Grandpa left the education sector and went into business with Dad that we gradually drifted apart. In the eyes of the Song family, Grandpa had willingly degraded himself. But he did it with his own hands and wisdom, all to provide a better life for himself and his family. Who gets to decide what's noble and what's lowly? I didn't understand it back then. I thought I could change their minds, but now I know it's impossible. We're just not the same kind of people. Grandpa chatted with me with a smile for a few words, then told me that the Song couple had come to see me for something. Uncle and Aunt, if you have something to say, just say it directly. Summer, your uncle and I are here this time to apologize to you. What happened before was Henry's fault. We've already talked to him, and he will proceed with the divorce from Cindy. Henry's mother spoke with unprecedented kindness and even apologized to me. But Summer, you also have your faults. If my granddaughter is wrong, I will teach her myself. When did it become outsiders' place to overstep their bounds, and besides, where was she wrong? Grandpa slammed his cane heavily on the ground twice, cutting off Mrs. Song's words. Henry's parents were the ones I had the servants escort out. They left without looking back, clearly very upset. But Grandpa was also so angry that his blood pressure spiked, nearly sending him to the hospital. It was only after hearing their words that I learned they came to see me today because Henry had abandoned his highly promising job at High and came to Jing City to look for me without permission. This was something his parents couldn't accept. They thought I was ungrateful, didn't know when to stop, and was too willful. In the past, I had hoped Henry's parents would, like many ordinary families before marriage, visit my parents with gifts, but this simple and common thing never happened. They never came or even considered doing it. Now, their first visit was to lay blame. I took Henry's number out of the blacklist and called him. Henry, please tell your parents to stop harassing me at my door, and don't show up in my life again. Besides, you're an adult now, it's time to grow up. I don't know if Henry actually talked to his parents, or if the proud Song couple simply couldn't stand the humiliation and chose to avoid further trouble. Either way, I never saw them again. Instead, Cindy came knocking. Summer, do you realize Henry has already fallen out with his family because of you? What do you gain from this? You're only ruining his future, and even if you win this fight, do you really think you and Henry can ever be happy? You'll never get past his parents. Cindy looked noticeably haggard, her cheeks sunken and dark circles under her eyes, likely a lingering effect of the online backlash from last time. Or maybe she truly cares about Henry and can't bear to see his future ruined. Cindy, what right do you have to criticize me, Henry's wife, or just a shady thief in the shadows? He's an adult. He can think about his own future. Besides, that's his business, not mine. If you care so much about him, go talk to him instead of coming after me. Summer, stop playing dumb. It was you who made Henry file for divorce with me. You're nothing but bad luck. Anyone who gets involved with you ends up suffering. No wonder your parents. Ah, you bitch. How dare you hit me? I hit you because you deserved it. Don't you dare act shamelessly in front of me again. Or I'll beat you every time I see you. Summer, just die. Suddenly, Kai Shina lunged at me like a madwoman, using all her strength to shove me into the oncoming traffic. I tried to dodge, but Henry, appearing out of nowhere, pushed me aside. The force sent me tumbling to the ground, and behind me, the screech of brakes and the sound of impact rang out simultaneously. Henry 20 was on the phone with the hospital while the family doctor tended to the scrapes on my arm. Hello, is this Summer, Mr. Song's condition isn't good, but he's refusing treatment. He insists on seeing you. Tell him I don't care if he gets treated or not. I hung up and turned off my phone. In the past, I wouldn't have needed such dramatics. I'd have naturally put him first, but now, all I feel is that this is just another form of coercion. Perhaps Henry had finally given up, as I never heard from him again. He didn't even step forward to defend Cindy when I accused her of intentional assault. However, I heard that Henry was quite severely injured, suffering from traumatic brain damage, which would likely leave him with uncoordinated movements in the future. For a high-tech researcher, this was a fatal blow. Henry's parents also grew to resent Cindy and naturally wouldn't tolerate Henry protecting her anymore. They even arranged to send Cindy back abroad. It said that Cindy had returned to the country seeking Henry's protection because she had offended a chaebol and wanted to avoid retaliation. I suppose she still has quite an eventful life ahead of her. On the day I successfully entered the headquarters, Grandpa threw a banquet for me, officially announcing my training as his successor. As I looked at the guests below raising their glasses in congratulations, I finally felt like a living, breathing person. Perhaps everyone must endure a painfully long trial and error process before finding the right path. The past may have been long and painful, but it's all behind me now. The first story ends here. The next story is even more exciting than the last. Let's continue reading together. On New Year's Eve, my fiancé abandoned me after a car accident that caused a miscarriage, choosing instead to accompany his young assistant abroad to see the Northern Lights. When I begged for help, he coldly replied, "Agree to break off the engagement if you want to live. In the end, it was my childhood friend and doctor, Nathan, who rushed to my side, risking his career to perform the surgery that saved my life. But the fully formed child didn't make it. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Nathan knelt on one knee and confessed his love to me, staring at the cold body of my child. In my despair, I agreed to marry Nathan. After marriage, Nathan and I shared a deep bond. 3 years later, I discovered I was pregnant again and was about to share the good news with Nathan when I overheard his conversation with Simon. "Nathan, I never thought you'd go this far for Susan. Do you think Faith would still love you if she knew you were the one who hit her with your car and killed that bastard child? Grace is too stubborn. If that child had been born safely, she would never have agreed to break off the engagement. As for me, as long as Susan is happy, I'm willing to spend the rest of my life making it up to Grace." The smile on my face froze. Inside the private room, the conversation between the two continued. "So I say, you're the ruthless one. Although that bastard was an accident from my drunken mistake, it was still a life. I could never bring myself to kill a living person, just to make me go on a date with Susan. You ran over Faith with a car, fine, but I heard the baby was crying when it was born, and you just injected it with a drug. And it went silent immediately. How could you be so heartless? Honestly, if I weren't afraid he'd keep pestering me after learning the truth, I wouldn't have taken the blame for you all these years. You didn't see it back then, when he came to me holding the dead baby, demanding to break off the engagement. The look in his eyes was like he wanted to tear me apart. I can only imagine how insane he'd go if he found out you were the one behind all this." The ex-fiancé smirked, downing the glass of foreign liquor in front of Nathan. "New Year's Eve is Susu's birthday. He made a wish to me, saying he wanted to spend it with you. I just want him to be happy. As for Grace, he'll never know the truth in this lifetime. He'll live happily, hating you and loving me." The ex-fiancé curled his lips, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Your plan sounds like a perfect happy ending for everyone. Well, you'd better pray Grace never finds out the truth. As for Susan, don't bother worrying. After all, the one he loves is me, and the only one who can make him happy is me." After speaking, the man stood up and walked toward the door. My hand gripping the doorknob had unknowingly clenched so tightly that veins bulged. As the man drew closer, my stiff legs finally regained sensation, and I stumbled down the stairs. Even after sitting in the car, my entire body couldn't stop trembling. The conversation between the two of them replayed incessantly in my mind. I leaned my head against the car window, letting the tears flow freely until they dried in the wind. The person who hit me with the car back then wasn't Simon, who was determined to break off the engagement, but Nathan, who risked his career to pull me back from the brink of death. Thinking of that sweet, soft little body, I pressed a hand tightly to my chest. No wonder. Back then, in my haze of consciousness, I heard a child's cries, but when I opened my eyes, all I saw was a cold, lifeless little corpse. I thought it was a hallucination, but only now do I realize, it was my child calling out to me for help. He could have survived. I'm an orphan. Back then, I longed for his arrival every single day, yet in the end, the one who killed my only family was none other than my beloved husband. Pain, sorrow, and guilt nearly drowned me. With these thoughts, I called my mentor and agreed to join the teaching volunteer program in daily action. As soon as I opened the door, Nathan's distinctive scent, mixed with alcohol, enveloped me. His tall frame pulled me into an embrace, his voice slurred with drunkenness. "Why didn't you come pick me up today? Everyone else had their wives waiting for them, but not me. I missed you so much. I love you so much. Please never leave me, okay?" I struggled a few times but couldn't break free. Staring at Nathan before me, the bitterness in my heart surged again. "So, even when drunk, you still remember to put on this act in front of me, just to keep me from clinging to Simon? Nathan, you're really living a tiring life. Nyan, are you angry? I swear there wasn't a single woman at today's gathering. Don't ignore me." I gazed at her quietly. "Ever since we got married, his doting on me has been known to everyone. Even in front of friends and brothers, he never cared about saving face, always putting me first as if being henpecked was something to be proud of. Everyone envied me for finding such a good husband. But only now do I realize how laughable the happiness I was immersed in truly was. He held me too tightly, showering me with kisses. Seeing that I couldn't break free, I suddenly spoke up. "I went to pick you up today." He sobered up instantly, his eyes filled with unconcealed panic, and asked, "Then why didn't I see you? Did you hear something?" I stared at him silently for a long moment, only speaking when his brows furrowed deeply. "The driver was a newbie and couldn't find the way. Since it was getting late, I came back first. What was I supposed to hear?" Hearing this, his stiff posture relaxed. "Nothing. It's just that our anniversary is coming up in a few days, and I have a surprise for you." I nodded, seizing the chance to slip out of his embrace, and turned to head into the bathroom. By the time I came out, Nathan had already left the house. Perhaps he left in too much of a hurry. His phone was left on the coffee table. As I walked over, several messages popped up. "Nathan, thank you for the protective charm. I don't know if it's just my imagination, but my morning sickness has improved, though my stomach feels a bit uncomfortable now. Simon is drunk. Can you come take me to the hospital?" Staring at the mention of the protective charm in the messages, I couldn't calm down for a long time. This protective charm was something my mother climbed thousands of steps for, bowing with each step, to pray for me before she passed away. Before reuniting with Nathan, it was my only solace. I always felt that as long as I had this charm, my mother would stay by my side. But 5 months ago, Nathan suddenly became emotionally unstable every day, and his health began to deteriorate. Frantic with worry, I took meticulous care of him, but still felt uneasy, so I solemnly placed the charm around his neck, hoping it would bring him peace and safety. And to reassure my parents in heaven, I had found someone who loved and cherished me as much as they did. I still remember how he held me in his arms back then, clutching the charm, promising he would treasure it and never take it off. Only now do I realize that his despondence at the time was because Susan was pregnant with Simon's child. The tears he shed while embracing me weren't from gratitude, they were from guilt, and the protective charm, he casually gave it away to Susan. The phone kept vibrating incessantly, but I ignored it completely. Just as I was about to pick up the water jug beside me, it was knocked over the next second. The man who had once been meticulous in his care for me now turned a blind eye to my red, blistered arm, gripping his phone as if facing a mortal enemy. "Grace, before we got married, we had agreed to trust each other." Before I could even open my mouth, his phone vibrated again. With just a glance, his face turned anxious, and he hurriedly left, leaving behind only the loud slam of the door. I popped the blisters on my arm and soothed it with cold water, which made it feel much better. Lying in bed, I scrolled through Susan's social media. "The most romantic thing in the world is that I need you anytime." In the video, Nathan's hands, those golden hands I had taken such good care of, were stirring a pot of lean meat porridge. From Susan's perspective, Nathan gently blew on the porridge in the spoon before tenderly bringing it to Susan's lips. Unlike the calm and gentle gaze he had when facing me, his expression now was full of worry and tenderness. I used to think he was just emotionally stable. But only now did I realize that people are only emotionally stable when facing someone they don't love. After turning off my phone, I entered the study. I had never doubted Nathan's love for me before, but now, staring at this safe I had never opened, it felt like Pandora's box, unwilling to give up. I tried my birthday and his birthday, until finally, I succeeded with another set of numbers. Susan's birthday. Inside were countless photos of Susan, each with a message on the back. "Susan, this lipstick suits you so well. I bought one for Chinian too, but she'll never be you. Susan, thank you for wearing the perfume I gave you. It makes me feel we're still connected. I also gave a bottle to Faith, so every night when I close my eyes, it feels like I'm holding you. Yes, Susan, why didn't you choose me? I was the one who loved you most." Susan. Seeing all these familiar things, I felt my blood run cold, a wave of icy dread nearly freezing me to the core. Unbeknownst to me, Susan had quietly infiltrated every corner of my life, and every time I received a gift from Nathan, I had foolishly thought it was his thoughtfulness. Moved by his gestures, I pinched my palm hard to snap out of it. Pushing these photos aside, at the very bottom was a black and red gift box. and just looking at it made me feel that whatever was inside was incredibly precious. Upon opening it, I found it was filled entirely with his and Susan's wedding photos. Except Simon's parts had all been cut out and replaced with himself. This time, he had written below, "If we stand together in the snow in this life, does that also count as growing old together? Susan, I love you, but if you love him more, I am willing to protect you for a lifetime without harm." What a grand promise. A lifetime without harm. Looking at all this, I suddenly found it laughable. I laughed until my heart ached, laughed until tears streamed uncontrollably. In the end, I crouched on the ground, my hand gently resting on my abdomen, trembling as I sobbed. So, if he loves Lynn, does that mean Susan can sacrifice my child's life and my entire future? I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I woke up, Nathan was already in the living room with Susan. Nathan, who had never cooked at home before, was bustling around the kitchen preparing lunch. When he saw me, he awkwardly explained that Simon had been busy these past few days, and Susan's pregnancy wasn't very stable. So he wanted to bring her home to rest for a few days. I silently sat down to the side. Nathan works hard, and his hands are especially precious. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he's never lifted a finger at home before. Now, thanks to Susan, I get to eat a meal he's cooked. Susan had no appetite and listlessly pouted, saying she didn't feel like eating. Nathan held up a spoon. Unlike his usual silence, distance, and politeness with me, now he was practically groveling. As he coaxed Susan to eat, probably noticing my gaze, he turned his head and gave me an awkward smile before placing a large shrimp in my bowl. I looked up and saw Susan fussing about wanting to eat mangoes. Nathan reminded her like a child about how she had eaten too many mangoes last time and ended up with diarrhea. I silently threw the shrimp into the trash. I still remember the first time I had an allergic reaction to shrimp. He held my hand tightly, crying, and said it was all his fault. That he would never forget it for the rest of his life. Now he's still very attentive, just not to me anymore. I had no appetite and was about to push aside my chopsticks to leave when Susan suddenly called out to me from behind. She leaned in close, smiling as she waved the protective charm hanging from her neck. "I heard from Nathan that this charm was something your mother prayed for. With this, the baby in my belly will surely be born safely." She deliberately emphasized the word safely. I couldn't help but step closer, only to be abruptly pushed away by Nathan. He shielded Susan tightly in his arms, frowning down at me with disdain. "It's just a protective charm. If you want one, I'll get you as many as you like. Susan already thanked you. Don't be so petty." My eyes instantly welled up with tears. Fists clenched tight. "Nathan, do you remember what you said when I gave you this protective charm?" I've always been composed, but this was the first time he'd seen me so distraught. Stunned for a moment, he reached out to wipe my tears, but behind him, Susan suddenly screamed, clutching her stomach, panicked. He immediately scooped her up and rushed toward the hospital. Leaning against the desk, my stomach tightened in waves. I struggled to walk to the neighborhood entrance to hail a taxi. Just as I arrived at the hospital, I saw Nathan holding Susan in line. Silently, I turned to another queue. After paying the fee and waiting outside the B supermarket, I was suddenly dragged into the stairwell. Before I could react, my cheek was slapped hard. It was Susan, her belly slightly rounded. She looked at me with disdain. "Grace, aren't you shameless? Back then, when you had a premature birth, why didn't you die along with that bastard? Back then, I told Nathan I didn't want you to bear his child, so during the surgery, he had one of your fallopian tubes removed, and now, you're pregnant again." Hearing her mention that child, my heart clenched painfully. Precisely because I knew Nathan didn't love me, I never told her about the pregnancy. "This child is mine alone. I'll leave with him and raise him well. He'll be my most important and only family." I never imagined that the man who comforted me countless times in the dead of night, watched me blame myself for not being able to give him a child, and said it didn't matter if we had no children, was actually the mastermind behind all this. My heart felt as if it were being squeezed, and I gasped for air. "Too bad, even if you were pregnant back then, Simon still chose me. Guess who Nathan will pick this time?" A bad premonition rose in my heart, But before I could react, he had already pulled me and we tumbled down the stairs together. Behind me, Nathan's frantic voice exploded, shouting for me. In the chaos, I desperately grabbed the railing, only to watch helplessly as Nathan made a choice between me and Susan, pulling Susan into his arms, ignoring the sharp pain in my abdomen from the fall. I gasped in agony. I saw Nathan standing on the stairs, anxiously checking Susan's injuries before glaring at me with a look of disgust I had never seen before. "Grace, I've always pitied you for losing your child and cared for you in every way. I never imagined you could be so vicious. Just because you lost your own child, you try to kill Susu's baby too, is that it?" I wanted to defend myself, but the pain left me unable to utter a single word. He carried Susan away in long strides, my vision darkened in waves, and before losing consciousness, the last thing I saw was his resolute back. When I woke again, the doctor's regretful voice reached my ears. The baby was healthy. What a shame. I let out a bitter laugh. In the end, I couldn't hold on to anything. After turning on my phone, I was bombarded with Nathan's relentless accusations against Grace. "Do you have any idea how terrified Susan is? She's been crying non-stop from fear. How could you be so vicious, so envious of others' happiness? Even if it was just a child in the womb, it was still a living life. How could you do such a thing? Unless you kneel and apologize to Susan this time, don't expect me to forgive you." I numbly read these messages and, after joining the volunteer teaching team, simply removed my SIM card. It wasn't until evening when the hospital couldn't reach me that they called Nathan. "Are you the family of patient Faith? We can't locate anyone, so we need to ask, would you like to handle the embryo yourselves? Or should we dispose of it for you?" While brewing prenatal medicine for Susan, Nathan accidentally dropped the ladle into the pot. Seeing Susan nearby, the same Susan whose slightest cough would usually send Nathan into a panic, he now stood frozen, as if oblivious to his own scalded, reddened hand. After a long pause, he finally found his voice and asked hoarsely, "Did you dial the wrong number? I performed the surgery myself back then. There's no way she could be pregnant." The person on the other end also sounded puzzled, followed by the rustling of papers and the clicking of a mouse. "Sir, according to our records, the expectant mother is indeed Grace. She registered at our hospital a week ago, and the father's name listed is He-nan Cheng. Are you Mr. He-Nathan, the husband of Ms. Grace?" "Yes, I am." After hanging up, he remained rooted to the spot, while Susan beside him clutched her blistered hand, looking at him with a mix of confusion and hurt. Nathan hadn't put the call on speaker, so she hadn't heard the conversation. Over the past few days, he had been whispering many bad things about me into Nathan's ear, which made Nathan stubbornly insist that I apologize to him. Instinctively assuming it was my call, his eyes darted, and with a blink of his long lashes, a string of tears rolled down as he feigned innocence, saying, "It's okay, Nathan, after all, you and Grace are married. I don't want to make things too difficult for you." Although he wanted to harm my child, it was ultimately me and Simon who wronged him first. Perhaps he still couldn't let go of Simon. In the past, whenever he played the victim like this, Nathan would feel heartbroken and tell him not to blame himself, insisting he was innocent and had done nothing wrong. But now, Nathan's frown deepened, completely ignoring him. He couldn't understand how I could be pregnant. Grabbing his coat from the sofa, he rushed out without even hearing Susan calling after him. He floored the accelerator to the hospital. His mind flooded with the image of my pleading, agonized eyes when I collapsed on the stairs that day. Only then did he realize, I wasn't begging for myself, but for our child. When he arrived at the hospital, the 4-month-old fetus, along with the placenta, was placed on a tray by the nurse. A bloody, indistinct mass, though the faint outlines of tiny hands and feet were visible. Seeing Nathan, the nurse sighed regretfully. This baby was perfectly healthy in every way. When your wife came alone for the checkup and found out she was pregnant, she was so happy she crouched in the hallway crying for a long time, saying she could finally have a child with you. She immediately wanted to go tell you. Honestly, family members should accompany expectant mothers more. Who would have thought such an accident could happen? When we found her, she was alone at the stairwell, covered in blood, her amniotic fluid nearly drained. The nurse kept shaking her head in sorrow as she spoke. Only Nathan remained in place, staring at the blooded embryo as his eyes gradually reddened, because he knew all too well. This was no accident. He had once again chosen Susan over me, and it had hurt me deeply. If he had pulled me to safety instead, our child would never have died. If he had rushed me to the emergency room in time, perhaps our child could have survived. He knew better than anyone how much I cherished family. Grace, back then, he had snatched me from the jaws of death himself, only to end that child's life with his own hands. He had seen me then, barely clinging to life, refusing to eat or drink, sitting by the window with tears streaming down my face. I knew one of my fallopian tubes had been removed, and the other was damaged from the miscarriage. I thought I'd never have a child in this lifetime. Back then, I had cried to him late at night, over and over, saying I had no family left. It was he who held me, patiently reassuring me time and again that he was my family, that he would protect and love me for the rest of his life. At the time, he was consumed by guilt, vowing to spend his life making it up to me. He had tried so hard to love me, and he could feel my place in his heart growing heavier. He had been doing so well. He couldn't understand why things had ended up like this. He could imagine how overjoyed I must have been when I learned of this child's arrival, and he could also imagine the depth of my despair when he abandoned me and our child for Susan. He didn't dare dwell on it further. The mere thought of my tear-filled, hopeless eyes was enough to make his heart ache to the point of suffocation. His lips parted slightly, and soon, his phone vibrated. A timed message from me. "Nathan, I know everything. Let's get a divorce," as he read the text. His hands began to tremble, his mind flooded with countless terrifying possibilities. He wasn't sure what I meant by everything. Soon, another front desk nurse came in with a document and handed it to him. His fingers trembled so much that he failed to open the envelope several times. Susan, who happened to arrive at the door, stepped forward to help him open it. When he saw the divorce agreement I had left inside, a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. No, it couldn't be. Nyan Nyan had said that in this world, I was his only family. How could he possibly want to divorce me? Susan's eyes briefly flickered with dissatisfaction, but she quickly concealed it. He blinked his large eyes and comforted her softly. "Could it be that the one you love is me? I know you only married her for my sake. Isn't it better that he's leaving on his own now?" "That's not it. I love her. I love Grace." Over the years, he had heard these words countless times from those who knew the truth. And he had always believed them, but only he himself knew. You see, Kai Nyan was truly a good girl, gentle, optimistic, kind, and considerate. When he loved her, his heart and eyes were filled with nothing but her. Unknowingly, the time he spent missing Susan grew less and less, and even the pain of unrequited love for Susan gradually faded. He began coming home every day, avoiding social engagements. At some point, seeing the simple meals under the soft light and Grace's gentle, smiling face when he returned home always eased the fatigue of the day. Perhaps he hadn't even realized it himself, but every "I love you" he said to Grace slowly became sincere. And now, Susan's words felt like deadly poison, stinging him painfully. He had never been so certain of his heart. Did he love Grace? No, how could it be? You're just feeling guilty because the one you love is clearly me. How could you fall in love with Grace? Was it because of the child? But now the child is gone. You promised you'd love me forever, and besides, you killed him. Both of us know Grace. She'll never forgive you. Nathan stared at the hysterical Susan before him, so different from the gentle, sweet, and innocent girl in his memories. Now, her eyes were filled with calculation. But wasn't the one she loved Jiang Simon? Why did she care so much about whom he loved? For the first time, he felt irritation toward Lin Susu and quickly seized the flaw in her words. "Even I just found out about Nyan Nyan's pregnancy. How did you know?" Nathan's voice was icy, his eyes frosty. Susan kept retreating in fear when he suddenly remembered the distress message Susan had sent him that day. That day, Susan said Faith had followed them to the hospital, dragged her into the stairwell, and intended to harm her. So when he saw the two of them tumbling down the stairs, he didn't even have time to think. He immediately chose the pregnant Susan, never doubting her. But now, her words seemed full of holes. Soon, the hospital's surveillance footage was retrieved. He saw with his own eyes how the pale-faced me was forcibly dragged into the stairwell by Susan, then watched as Susan, her face twisted with malice, smugly asked me, "Who do you think Nathan will choose?" Nathan gasped slightly, his breath ragged. In the last half hour of the video, I lay in the stairwell, the blood beneath me spreading wider, tears streaming down my face as I weakly pleaded, "Please, save my baby." I struggled to crawl upward, but had no strength left, until I finally collapsed unconscious in the stairwell. "How dare you?" Nathan clutched his chest and stood up from the chair, breathing heavily. Behind him, Susan, held by 2 bodyguards, trembled in terror. The hospital staff watching the scene cast scornful glances at the pair. These two, one knowingly becomes the other woman, even willing to harm the original spouse's child, and the other, despite being the child's father, actually abandons his own wife in a critical moment to save another woman. Someone in the crowd has already called the police. "No, it's not like that, it's Grace. She deliberately provoked me, and I acted impulsively and made a mistake. Nathan, help me." The sound of sirens grew closer. Susan finally realized fear. Everything in the past had been covered up by Nathan, and now she instinctively turned to Nathan for help. Unfortunately, Nathan kicked her away. "Enough. I know what kind of person Kai Nyan is better than you." Thinking of this, he still couldn't contain his anger and kicked Susan in the stomach repeatedly. "Since you enjoy hurting other people's children so much, why should you get to become a mother safely and smoothly?" Susan let out a scream as she was kicked, clutching her stomach and wailing in agony, desperately begging the medical staff present to save her child. After all, she was just a small-time assistant. And her relationship with Simon had never been legitimate from the start. Now that the initial excitement had faded, she had to rely on this child to keep Simon's affection, which was also why she wanted to cling tightly to Nathan. It wasn't until the police were about to enter that the outraged medical staff symbolically began restraining Nathan and attempting to save Susan. In the end, Lin Susu's child could not be saved, and Simon rushed back, upon learning of Lin Susu's actions. He took no action, allowing the He Corporation's lawyers to prosecute and suppress Susan. Nathan returned home after being detained for half a month. The moment he opened the door, he called out my name. The empty living room no longer held my gentle, serene smile or the steaming hot meals. The man, who had grown haggard in just half a month, remembered my text message and staggered to the second-floor study. When he saw the open safe, his heart sank to the depths once more. Aside from the photos and items inside, there was also a note I had left. "Nathan, may we never meet again in this life or the next." The note bore the dried tear stains from when I had written those words. He clutched the note tightly, pressing a hand to his chest, weeping until his entire body convulsed from lack of oxygen. In the center of the study hangs our wedding photo. I saw his index and middle fingers crossed, a gesture of him begging for forgiveness. From beginning to end, he lied to me, deceived me, and hurt me. His guilt reached its peak, and he pulled out a sapphire blue brooch from his pocket. This was the one we saw at an auction, and I had said I liked it, but he told me blue didn't suit me and bought me a pink brooch instead. I thought it was because he liked pink, but only later did I realize it was because Susan did, and the reason she bought that brooch was to give it to me on our anniversary. Lin Susu is pregnant with Simon's child, so he no longer needs to do anything else. He plans to devote himself fully to our life together, only giving me things I truly like from now on. No, that's not it, that's not how it is. Nyan Nyan, please, don't be so cruel, give me another chance. I love you, Nyan Nyan, I love you. I will definitely find you again. Nathan had someone investigate my recent movements. He knows I've uncovered the whole truth. It was only then that he truly believed I wanted a divorce. Torn between overwhelming guilt and longing for me, he mobilized all his resources to track me down. The moment he confirmed my volunteer teaching location, he rushed to me without delay. Daliang Mountain is remote and the conditions are harsh. The first time he saw me, his eyes welled up uncontrollably. He couldn't imagine how I, who had been pampered like a delicate flower all these years, could endure such a place. He stood at the classroom door, watching me, who once wore haute couture, now dressed in simple jeans and a grey-brown top, teaching on the podium to a room full of bright, eager eyes. My once fair skin had darkened, and my hair was tied back simply, yet he thought I shone brighter than ever. Only when the class ended and our eyes met did he awkwardly wipe his palms and call out, "Nyan Nyan," his voice hoarse. One by one, the children passed by me, each politely greeting me, "Teacher Kai." I patiently responded and gave them reminders before nodding at Nathan and leading him to the office, though called an office. It was just a shabby room where even the windows had to be patched with newspaper. After glancing around, his voice began to tremble as he said, "Nyen Nyen. I've missed you so much." Before he could finish, I interrupted him. Lunchtime at the school was only half an hour, and I didn't want to delay others because of myself, so I had to cut him off and go eat, despite the poor conditions and the simple meals, where even the meat dish was just minced pork stewed with winter melon. I found it more delicious than anything I'd ever eaten before. Here, I felt an incredible sense of peace. But Nathan across from me kept gazing at me with pity and heartache in his eyes. He had only taken one bite of his meal before setting down his chopsticks, which annoyed me. Though I didn't say much, I ignored him, but he refused to leave. In the end, the principal stepped in and arranged for him to stay in an empty classroom. For half a month, he followed me everywhere, as if just seeing me was the happiest thing for him. Finally, worn down, I agreed to have a proper talk with him. It had just rained, and I skillfully walked in rain boots alongside him on the muddy path, the air filled with the scent of earth. "What else do you think we have to talk about? I've had enough." His deeply affectionate eyes stopped in their tracks as I spoke the first complete sentence I'd directed at him in those 2 weeks. Nathan wore a complicated expression, his eyes brimming with guilt, a man who had always been fastidious. He had lost a noticeable amount of weight in just half a month. His once well-fitted clothes now hung loosely on him, yet, without a care for the dirt, he suddenly dropped to his knees with a thud. "Nyan Nyan, I truly know I was wrong. Back then, I was blinded by foolishness. At that time, I deeply loved Susan. And since Simon didn't love you at all, I thought it would free everyone. But after being with Nyan Nyan, I realized you never intended to use the child to tie him down. You just wanted someone who truly belonged to you. I really know I was wrong. Nyan Nyan, do you remember, you said that from now on, I would be the most important person in your life, your closest family. I also promised to protect you forever. Give me another chance. Okay, let's get back together." Just the two of us. I watched the usually aloof man kneeling before me, tears filling his eyes, holding the sapphire brooch I once longed for, yet feeling nothing inside. Only those 2 children. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, then slapped He Nancheng hard across the face. "Nathan, who do you think you are? If you love Susan, then you should go after her. Why did you have to hurt me? What crime did my child commit? What crime did I commit for you to treat me this way? Do you know how much I hated myself when I found out you were the one behind it all? Do you know how ridiculous I felt when I saw what was in the safe? Do you know how much I hated you when you watched me bleed for Susan? Do you even deserve a chance?" I stared deeply at the face I once saw as salvation, now only finding it utterly repulsive, watching his back bend inch by inch. I sighed, "Nathan, if it weren't for the lack of evidence, I would have already sent you to prison myself to atone for my child's suffering." After saying that, I turned to leave without looking back, but suddenly a figure emerged from the bushes nearby. In the rush, I once again saw the familiar face of Susan, who was cursing viciously at Grace. "Why do you always haunt me? Why must you take everything that belongs to me?" He lunged at me with a gleaming fruit knife in his hand, unable to dodge in time. At the critical moment, I fell into a warm and familiar embrace. The next sound was the blade piercing flesh, and the man above me groaned before collapsing into my arms. The passing teachers managed to restrain Susan. Nathan, his face deathly pale, grabbed my sleeve. I didn't speak, only pressing firmly on his wound. Soon, the 120 ambulance arrived at the foot of the mountain, and several male teachers helped carry him down. As I left, I looked at him and said, "He Nancheng, if you truly care for me, don't disturb me again." His pale lips trembled, finally forming a bitter smile. "I understand, Nyen Nyen." Later, I heard news about them again. It turned out that last time, Simon had ultimately used his connections to get Susan out of prison, but without a child to rely on, he soon found another lover. This time, after Susan attacked Nathan, Jiang Simon completely abandoned him, and Nathan sent him back to prison. Rumor has it he'll never get out again. 6 months later, news broke that the genius doctor had turned himself in. He held a press conference, confessing every detail of the incident from back then. From that moment on, his career was effectively over, and he faced the prospect of imprisonment. Even Simon's company saw its stocks plummet, plunging into an urgent crisis. On camera, with reddened eyes, he apologized to me and left all his assets to me. I took a sip of goji berry water from my thermos. Dan then averted his gaze until 2 students, pulling each other's ears, walked into the office. Teacher Wang Shu was wrong to hit me first. It was Liu Zhenxing who splashed ink on my clothes. The faint emotions in my heart dissipated. After separating the two, I smiled and made each of them write a 50-word reflection. When the class bell rang, I strode confidently toward the classroom, head held high. Behind me, the TV continued to broadcast the news, and in my heart, I silently replied, "Nathan, may we never meet again, in this life or the next." That's the end of today's story. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. We will keep updating with more exciting stories and look forward to meeting you again next time.